Happy New Year, Happy New Year. It's the new year, folks. Welcome to Wow Ergonomics with me, Graham Cafe, and Stephen Howe. How was it for you transitioning from the old year into the new year?
Oh, it was a smooth transition.
Was it?
It's as if we've never been. It's as if I've never been away. So I mean, it was nice to have a break. I think I was talking to you yesterday on the phone, though, Graham, and sort of saying I do find it dark, rainy, all that sort of stuff. I'm quite happy to sort of get back to work after a few days rest. I think in the summer when it's nice, long, light, hot days, you're a bit more, I always find it a little bit harder to get back to work. But I think, we'd done the break, we'd had Christmas, we had a good time.
Yeah.
Got to get back at it sometime, haven't you?
Well, it's almost like we need one of your lights.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, to kind of help us, into that, in this season of darkness in the mornings. If you don't know what we're talking about, Stephen's company sell a light called Energy by Light, which
Correct.
Actually goes with the natural body's cadence of rhythm, and wakes you up gently in the morning, energizes you throughout the day, and then makes you slightly sleepy as you go through to the latter part of the day, so that you actually get a good night's rest. That's basically explaining it without too much science, isn't it?
That's not a bad job. You've done pretty well there, Graham. That's probably spot on what it does. A light that ties in with your body's natural circadian rhythm.
There we go. I like that. I think that's important for people, because that beat's being jumped upon by a 7-year-old early in the morning, and then the wife putting the full beam headlights on.
Yeah.
And you just go, which is typically what happens in this house. Did you get any good Christmas presents? I've got to ask you that.
Did I get any good Christmas presents? Yes, I did, but I can't think of anything that I'd sort of throw out there immediately. So I think I got everything I asked for.
Okay. Because my family know that I do this show.
Yeah.
There was one little gift that they provided me with,
okay,
which is health and safety related, which is this. There we go. Look at that. Lovely.
Nice.
Yeah, a toilet roll of warning hazardous waste. There we go. I'm telling you now, I would not use this on the toilet. It is like sandpaper.
Sandpaper, yeah.
There we go. Our guest has arrived.
Brilliant.
Thank goodness for that, they say. Take these people off and bring on someone that's actually got something sensible to say. So we will remove, I know, right? We will remove the outer branding so that we can bring in the wonderful Kirsty Birch. Hello.
Hey.
Welcome to the show.
I was trying to download, guys, trying to get on, and I've got a StreamYard, so I don't know why. Anyhow.
There you
it's
go.
Friday. Maybe it didn't like me today. I don't know.
Oh, everything goes wrong tech-wise on a Friday, doesn't it?
Indeed.
Everything goes wrong tech-wise. Now, listen, we've just been asking, Kirsty, Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year, Kirsty.
Was it a nice transition for you from 2022 into 2023?
Yeah, I was quite keen to get back. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah.
I was kind of, I don't fully let go over Christmas anyway, because it gives me that 2-week opportunity to kind of plan a few things, doesn't it? But yeah, it was nice, but I was ready. I'm ready to go into this year, so it's all good.
Good. And the second question, which I asked Stephen a minute ago, I was just sharing my toilet roll that the family
not actually going to be sharing it. You'll be glad
in my stocking this year. Was there? Thank you, Jim. Happy New Year to you. And Philippa would like a link for the light, so Stephen will sort that out. Was there any Christmas presents that you got this year that we can know about?
Well, that's a funny question, isn't it?
Well, I don't know. It might have a funny answer.
Yeah.
To be fair, do you know what, guys? I don't know what it is. I think you get boring as you get older.
Yeah,
you definitely do. You don't expect nothing, so if you do get anything, it's a blessing. But yeah, no, I actually asked my husband, "So this is how boring am I?" was like, "Yeah, I want some stuff for my podcast stuff, and it's really boring now." You see what I mean? It's not fun anymore. No,
that's fun because you're doing a podcast. We'll talk about
However,
that in a minute.
What my husband tends to do is go on his own and find things. And
no.
After being together 23 years, he'd probably boycott that one. But every year, so tomorrow my trip to Blue Water is taking stuff back.
Oh, yeah. You see, I'm apparently I'm terrible to buy for because I just tell people what I want.
Yeah, but sometimes being direct is the best thing, surely. Then there's no.
I think so, because I just think if you make it really obvious. Whereas my wife, she says, she says, well, you got to kind of guess what I need. What?
Oh,
I don't.
That's asking
it's
for trouble.
really hard, isn't it? Because if you get it wrong.
Oh, you're opening up a can of worms for something that doesn't need to be opened up again. So my husband did try, bless him, weren't too bad. But then it comes down to, with women, what size do you get? And I think sometimes just forget it, because you're going to insult somewhere along the lines. So just leave.
Do you know
never ever go off list. Never go off list at Christmas. Stick to the list. You can't go wrong. If it's been asked for and you get it, you can't get into trouble, as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely. Makes a happy wife, doesn't it? So there you go.
Happy wife, happy life.
Absolutely. I have to say, I did learn from my father years ago how not to do it. Because once, this was actually for a birthday, not for Christmas. For a birthday, he bought my mum one of those beaded seat covers for her car.
That's as bad as getting an iron.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
It is. Oh, look. I bought you one of those food processors.
I think the intention was behind it. A nice intention was behind it, bless him.
But it's like, no, she went off on one. It was like, I wanted something for me.
Not for the car. That's probably going to
Not for the car. Yeah.
Did she use it though? Did she use it?
Did she use it? No. Yeah. No, she had him take it back. Like Jim's reaction says it all there. Kirsty, tell us a little bit about yourself. Stephen's never probably met you before. Tell us who you are, what it is that you do.
Okay, so Steve, are you ready for this? I don't blow you away. There we go.
No, ready.
So guys, I don't know if you know, I was an accountant for 20 years. Obviously,
never mind.
Still got my accountancy brain on. Probably right suited for an accountant, but hey ho. Now I've got into I'm more wellbeing and performance coaching, so I still get to use my accountancy knowledge in a sense, because obviously performance related. So I'm all about performance at work, wellbeing at work, mental health at work, and getting the best out of your team. Happy team, happy business, isn't it? So and I think it's needed at the moment as well. So it's just an area, to be fair, I've experienced myself, and I think I can give a lot back here. So why don't I do something I'm quite passionate about and I can make a difference? So that's where I'm at the moment.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And so it sounds like in the past, without naming names or whatever, you've experienced being in a bad team.
Yeah, I'll tell you what it is more as well. I've been on both parts, because I've owned businesses where I've had to have employees, so you can kind of see how managers work as well, which doesn't align well with myself. This time around, I get to have a company where it's just me rather than partners, and I think I just get to do things a little bit differently. And then going into workplaces as well, just give sound advice. Sometimes it doesn't have to feel too heavy. You can make things light, you can make things fun and engaging, and you'll get a lot more response then, don't you? When you start listening to people and doing it in the right way, it makes a big difference. So
what's the most common sort of, I say, issue? What's the sort of or problem? What's the biggest thing you come across that you have to address, Kirsty?
One of the main things, and this is why I went into the coaching side, is purely confidence as well. So it's a confidence in your job, if you're feeling undervalued, underappreciated, and then it stops you from taking any sort of making any growth in your career. And it's quite sad, because if you actually encourage people a lot more, you've got some great assets in your team, and I think people overlook that. Confidence is massively one. And also, I think it's a big fear thing. A lot of people compare themselves to too many people, and they worry that, I'm not going to be as good as that person, so they don't go for job opportunities. And I think well-being at the moment, definitely a financial thing. I think what's going on in the world at the moment, cost of living crisis, we're living in a world of changes, aren't we? And I don't know if people adapting to change and just being able to, with uncertainty, very well. And I think it needs to be a little bit more addressed now, with employers buttoning that up as best as they can, really.
Now, you see, I think this is the perfect guest Stephen, for your post that you put out earlier this week.
Which was?
Yeah, go on.
It all ties in, doesn't it? Well, I put a few out, but are you referring to the one about a footfall in London, Graham? Was that the one you were?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so I don't know if you've seen this article, Kirsty. I think it was on Wednesday. It was an article on the BBC website where they were talking about, I think specifically the City of London. So what footfall looks like now. So they're almost saying Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, everything's extremely busy. Monday is only about 50% of Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday it's a bit of a ghost town.
Which
so
is
quite
crazy.
Yeah.
Which is crazy for London, when they're the biggest capitals. You know, it's not even just that. It's more, Fridays were always probably about social at work as well. So people were more. So if you're not interacting now and you're not having that social interaction, this is where, like I said to you, the well-being is really coming into it massively now, because some people, that was their way out. Some people, it was just their little bit of a time off, a little bit of a release. And Mondays, this hybrid system is great in some factors. But I think where lots of people are probably not getting out and about, there's not going to be a lot of businesses working in London anymore, which is a shame. Absolute shame.
And not wanting to get political on this, and you know, Graham and I have discussed this off record, but actually, no, but you've got to. But the reality is, I wonder how much things like people not being able to get into work because of things like train strikes, etc. As I say, I'm not commenting either side, but the reality is that only between 10 and 20% of trains are running or have run most days this week. So those people who've maybe potentially spent a lot of time on their own over the Christmas period, maybe looking forward to go back to work to interact, actually can't, because there isn't the mechanism to take them into that social work environment.
Yeah, that's a good shout, Stephen. I think that's exactly, Christmas is a lonely time for a lot of people anyway, especially if you haven't got certain people around you, or if you've not been able to, you know, the last couple of years we've had, I think people have kind of gone in themselves a lot, haven't they? And when the workplace is normally the environment where you at least get to go and be a different person. And it is that, isn't it? It's having that different hat on, unfortunately. But if you're not even getting that way out now, well, you can imagine people's mental health now as well. They're just sitting indoors. I've got clients now that I work with, and it's purely because they need to get back out and they need to feel a bit more confident in what they're doing now. And they're just sitting in four walls. So you know, some people share house shares and flat shares, and they're out at work all day. They're just left there every day, Monday to Friday. And then Monday to Friday becomes Saturday and Sunday, doesn't it? And before you realise it, there's no change at all to what you're doing every day. And I think that's it's got to become overwhelming, isn't it, surely?
There's lots of different factors all play into this, because you also take into fact a lot of people have been quite poorly. You know, you think if there's been a lot, I mean, I was reading before about flu and things like that. I know a lot of people who've had chest infections and bad colds and things like that. So it's almost that cycle. It's difficult to break. So you've got that loneliness piece. You've got the piece around people can't get into work. You've got the fact that people are ill. There's so many sort of contributing factors at the moment, creating quite not toxic, but sort of an unhealthy sort of pot of issues.
Well, I think we're seeing a number of cases of illness which wouldn't have been there before, because we've all been isolated from germs.
Yeah, you're right, Graham. And I said this to my husband only yesterday, that you think that first lockdown, you didn't really hear it. Obviously, COVID was around. That's why we was locked down. But it was, I didn't really hear anybody. My kids wasn't coming home from anything from school. They wasn't catching, we wasn't unwell. And I think you're right. I think we've sheltered ourselves probably quite a lot. And now people are a little bit resistant to get out there and mingle a bit more. Yeah,
no, absolutely. And I said, when Stephen put that piece up, I said, I can't see that this is sustainable either. I mean, I meant that from an economic point of view. I mean, if people are not inhabiting offices 5 days a week, it's not just those businesses, is it? It's the businesses that support those businesses around those. Where's all of that infrastructure going to go?
It's crazy. I think you're right. And I was saying to my husband, he works for a large council, and they're all hot desking now. So it's all hybrid, all hot desking. You know, full fact that they're going to drop down the sizing of the the actual working structure there. They're not going to hire those offices straight away. They're going to reduce down. And I said to him, what happens then? He said, well, we just hot desk. So they just work from home. The government obviously give an incentive, which is a couple of £100 a year or something like that, to work from home. That's so much more cost effective as big businesses to allow you to do that than to have you in their offices, heating and storing and lighting, all these. They're not going to do it, are they? They're not going to.
No, and the example we used, again, Graham, when we were sort of prepping for the show, we talked around things like sandwich bars, little news agents, things like that. You know, when people were constantly coming in 5 days a week, there was regular business. You know, is that little independent sandwich shop or coffee shop going to be able to function? If we take City of London as an example and extrapolate it out, in reality, what they're saying is you've got 3 days busy work, sort of half a day on a Monday, and haven't got a clue what's going to happen on a Friday. So it's that ripple effect of all those sort of support ancillary businesses that rely on the footfall are then going to be impacted as well, aren't they?
Yeah. Can I ask you, Kirsty? I mean, do you find when you're speaking to businesses, are they trying to find ways to make provision for people to, let's get away from how some people define this hybrid piece, but are they trying to find creative ways in order to allow their people to get out of their homes in a way? Because there are options available. I mean, we've talked about, Stephen, there's a company that started up in the middle of the pandemic called Reef.
Yeah, and I've been speaking to them recently. So
have you? Right, there you go. So an app on the phone, and you can, it allows your people to book, places in the local area and just get out the office and go and work somewhere else for the day, which I think is a brilliant idea. Stephen's company provide solutions that enable you to go and work, without a desk and a chair and whatever, if you like, create a better ergonomic workstation wherever you are, maybe a coffee shop or whatever. There are options out there, but our company's actually looking into that and actually making the provision and saying that there are ways in which you could, you can get out the house. Or are they just like happy?
Employers are. I think there are. I'm finding this with the wellbeing side. There are very good employers out there that will invest into that for their people. It makes sense, doesn't it? That's how you get your return on your investment. Invest in your best asset, which is your team. So there are some people that are doing that, and then there are many that aren't. And there's purely, a lot of the time is, I think they just haven't got the funds. I know it sounds crazy, but it's like they're probably a medium-sized business, just haven't got that money there. It's not going to be as cost effective, and they just need to work. And I was speaking with Becky recently about Reef, because I'm trying to look into possibly partnering up with them in some way. But it's a fantastic concept, like to be able to get out and just have a coffee and have that social interaction with somebody. You can't put money on that, can you? So, and the fact is, what is it, £8-10 a month or something like that? That's going to be a much more beneficial benefit to give your employees than it is to say, like, okay, you can come into the office if you want on certain days. If they know they can go to the local, restaurant down the road or the local bar down the road and sit there and do their work, and then there's not going to be no funny glances at you because you're only buying one coffee, they're going to do that because it's going to make sense. It's going to be cost effective for them to do that. So why would they not?
Yeah, and do you know what? People are quite intuitive at finding other people when it comes to it. I mean, I think if you start looking for these creative ways forward, then you'll find, like, members of your team will go, oh, well, actually, we live within X amount of distance from each other. Why don't we all get together there? Because it would be great. Let's form a little local team. And then, if you're listening to them, here's a really key point. If you're listening to them and communicating with them, you might find that you need to shift about your teams a little bit. You might find that naturally a group of people might be, able to gather together, and you might just go, well, let's have a little shift around in terms of some of the things that you're doing, so that actually you can work more productively as a team. Yeah. I don't think a lot of management are looking that way, though, necessarily.
I think you're right. I think a lot of people are quite stuck in their ways, aren't they? And I think the new generation that's coming up now, guys, after us, I think they're all over this. I think well-being and mental health and, working different ways, it's all about that now. I think there's still a lot of people who are in a certain structure that they can't get on with that. And, that is what it is. Some people have got habits, haven't they, and they don't want to change them. But moving forward, it's definitely going to be more of a positive, because give you the option then. You've got the option to go into the office. You've got the option to work from home, or you've got the option just to, like you said, get out. And I think we need to have that now. It's just going to be a shame, because I can see a lot of London. I go into certain areas where I live, and there's empty shops now. No one's getting out. So if there's empty shops and you're not then passing trade, you're not getting any more. It's just not going to happen, is it? I know a lady who set up in lockdown as a community, exactly what you said, like a tea room, but she's got a little shop above it. Really, really struggling. And she said, like, anybody I talk to in this sort of in this environment, they're all struggling the same. But I think you've got to think of just different ways. You've got to be different. You've got to be so different now to attract attention because that attention is not the same as what it was 3 years ago, is it? So
yeah, and I think, you know, there's another whole piece there about the changing landscape of high streets, etc. As well. I mean, I just think, you know, it's becoming more and more difficult for landlords to get the rents and the rates that they, you know, that they need out of tenants, and that's forcing people to reduce down their real estate. I think it was Wilco that released a press release last week that they're closing X amount of stores across the country, you know, where they couldn't renegotiate the rent. You know, I mean, it's daft. You know, we're entering this kind of cycle of, you know, we'll lose bits of what would make it culturally, you know, interesting to be in a particular place, and we're going to have to reinvent where people gather and how people gather. And it's
interesting, Graham, because there was I think we touched on that article before about what it looked like in the City of London. But I said to you, if you go a bit further down the article, and I was just looking whilst you were chatting there, they were saying that certain parts of the country are really booming on footfall. And it's areas that they call 15-minute cities. Now, I'd never heard of this expression before. So it's where shops and businesses and houses are all within about a 15-minute walk. So obviously, you know, everything's a lot closer. So as I say, they were given examples of places like Marlow, Matlock, Colchester, places like that where footfall is sort of up by 25 to 35%, because because everything's fairly close, and people can go from their home to the shops, or from the shops to the business, or the business to home, and it's all very, very close together. So what they're saying is those sort of the dispersed city centres are the ones that are going to struggle. Actually, and I mean, those, you know, I know they're not huge cities, but they're fairly big towns, aren't they? Places like Colchester and Marlow and Matlock, I think they said, where they've got lots of things close to each other, they're actually seeing a real increase in footfall overall. So again, are we having to change, you know, almost the geographical layout? And you know, Seaside's doing really, really well. So it's the big cities that are struggling. Yet it's the slightly smaller towns where things are a lot closer are the ones who are actually sort of bucking the trend from what we saw.
And it's crazy, because you think years ago London would have been a sound option to invest into a business in, because you'd have thought that it's, you know, there's so many businesses up there, like you said, the footfall was immense, and shows you how times can change. And I think small businesses now in London, you've just got. I just don't think they're going to be able to compete. I just don't think it's not going to happen. You know, it's like you said. I think as well, when you're in a smaller area, when you're saying that, I think a lot of people have a lot of loyalty. They have a little bit, so they'll support their local businesses a lot more. They'll get out and about, and if they haven't got to go further than 15 minutes, then why would you? Especially if you're more of an elderly person, or somebody that doesn't want to get out for too long. And like I said, that's kind of where the world's going now. So I'm not surprised actually that that's doing better than overpopulation. You know, that I walked to London, and it's very I don't know when the last time you guys went into London, but it is
not that long ago actually. Yeah,
and it is quite, you can feel it, can't you? It's not as busy anymore. That hustle isn't there.
Very definitely. I quite like what Jim's saying there. If the high street reinvents itself correctly, that they win. Reverse the decline. Community hubs are the way forward. I think so. You know, where I have seen in little towns and whatever, where people are creating those hub spaces where you can go and work, and, you know, drop in, drop out for a cup of coffee, you know, meet with fellow people, and as you say, it's right on your doorstep. That's a win. You know, it's where it
is. When you look at that Reef, Graham, when you're saying that, they've got their app where you pop in your address and it comes up everywhere it's located. So if you're actually got to have a meeting with somebody, or you've got to do, so much easier now to be able to liaise with them and say, look, I can meet you in this area. What's best for you? That's kind of the way it's going now. And it's just going to be, there's no, how can I put it? There's no commitment from anybody, is there? It's just you pop in, you pop out, you can do this, it's a lot more flexible.
Don't you think part of it is we're just trying to get used to a lot of different behaviours as well? A little bit like, if you look at all three of us now, and actually, Kirsty, you're far better dressed than even me or Stephen. But but if you look at us now, if we'd have been doing this live on air. Let's face it, a couple of years ago, we would have all been wearing suit, tie.
It'd be frowned upon. Is that what you're saying, Graham?
What I'm saying is,
the whole demeanor would have been everything to be different. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, everything would have been different. And we're kind of now getting used to, like, do you have to have a meeting around a ball table in a corporate office with someone at a particular level, or can you meet them in a coffee shop somewhere and have that? Can you meet them in a pub and have that conversation? The answer is yes, you can. We know we can do this now. It's changed. Stephen, you're going to say something?
I can say I did exactly the same yesterday. So, a client who I normally would have driven to their offices to, actually we met at sort of halfway in between at a service station. There was a Costa there. We got a table. We managed to, talk about all the different things we would have spoke about in the office. But what it allowed it to do was it was more of an equal share about the driving, and it was a lot less formal. But we covered more and actually probably got more from it for the fact it was a less formal, stuffy environment. It was quite relaxed. So yeah, you're right. It's absolutely spot on.
Stephen, that's where you and I first met, was in the service station several years ago. So I'd just like to say right at this point that we were obviously trendsetters and ahead of our time.
It all began in October 2019 at Gloucester Services or wherever it was. It was
there you go.
Services, wasn't it? Yeah.
It was Gloucester Services, which is a very nice service station and a great place to go and work. So let's just get onto that online piece, Kirsty. I mean, is that one of the issues that management are having as well? Is managing people from behind a computer screen?
Yeah, it's tough, isn't it? It's definitely. But I think if you have the right approach to things and you have that relationship with people that you build, because like you said, relationships are built heavily online now. A lot of my connections that I've built, even on LinkedIn and things like that, I've got work from purely based on an online relationship. So people put their trust into you. So I think if it's approached in the right way and you're the right person to do it, you can pull anything off. But I think you're right. I think I've seen people do manage certain courses recently, shall I say, and I think, oh my God, like it's just boring as anything. No one's going to interact with that. No one's going to do nothing. So that's where face-to-face always used to be beneficial, which it still is, obviously, the best form. But now I think if you get the right person doing certain things, you can still achieve the same result, just in a different way. And it'll be a lot more cost-effective for you then,
Yeah. There's some very interesting stats about managers' perceptions of staff and how much they're working or how engaged they are, etc., and whether or not they have their Zoom camera off or on. I don't know whether you've seen that.
Yeah, I've seen it. This to me, if that was me and I'm seeing somebody with their Zoom camera off, I'd be having a little chat with them after and finding out why that is, because there could be something else going on. I think what the problem is, especially, and I should be shooting managers in the foot and leaders in the foot. However, a lot of people assume things, and it's not always the case, is it? Rather than actually communicating with someone and asking, and sometimes be direct with it. Look, put your camera on. Like, don't avoid the subject, just address it. So, need your camera on. I need everybody engaged at the moment. It's not hard to do, but I think people will then be in their bonnet over it and allow themselves to get so worked up over something when they could directly, bring it out straight away.
Yeah, I know. Of course, there are times when people, take the Michael, because
sitting in their boxes, you mean, with a t-shirt on, probably doing an interview or so, or doing. Yeah, I've seen it.
I can't say which bank it was, but I can remember going into a bank to do a piece of work with someone. It was in a branch, and the branch manager said to me, "I've actually got a meeting booked at the same time as we're due to do the assessment." He said, "But don't worry about it." He said, "Because I never listen on these meetings." He said, "So I will have to have the intercom on, and occasionally I might have to interject." But it said, most of the time I just, that's how I always do these meetings. I literally have it on, and occasionally I just go, and they think I'm still there.
It's crazy. I think it is. Yeah, I think that's probably what the risk is, I suppose, if people are not engaging, are they? So,
but again, I think that's I think that's where everybody's had to up their game or needs to up their game if they haven't upped their game already. and perhaps that's where, you know, people like yourself can really help with managers, etc. When you're having meetings, are you making sure that there is something there for people to actually get involved in?
Yeah, exactly.
Or are you just spouting information at them? Because, you know, as soon as you take this from a situation where you're all sat in a particular room looking at each other, and you can see the whites of everyone's eyes, to being online, you know, how are you actually keeping them engaged and entertained, if you like, for that hour? Or are you literally just expecting them to sit there and listen to you waffle on? You know, because, not being funny, a lot of us would go, oh, that's 10 minutes of that. Okay, you know, I got the first 10 minutes. After that, no, sorry, I've tuned out now, you know, and I'm on to playing Sudoku over here on my board.
I think you've got to make learning quite fun, guys, and I think that's just the way forward. Keeping people's engagement is hard as it is, but make it quite fun, make it involve people, you know, so certain role plays, get them involved with it. So learning about certain situations or scenarios, you will definitely take more home from that than, like you said, just listening to the spiel that someone's reeling off. If you're engaging them in it and say, you know, give me a situation and get them involved in it, people will take on the information on board a lot more.
Yeah. Where people have got offices, Kirsty, are you seeing anyone making changes to those office spaces in terms of design, or how they're using those office spaces to be a little bit more interactive?
Yeah, I've seen a few meeting rooms going now, and also I think just workstations changing. I think a lot more people now are having workstations changed. Wellbeing is really, really advanced now. It's moving forward in that direction, and I think you have to be able to. You've got to make changes now, especially if you've got HR and things like that. It's going to be. It's obviously going to be. That's just the way it is. But yeah, definitely. But like my husband's gone in today. Everyone's kind of going back to normal to a degree now. It's taken them 2-3 years, and it's everyone's trying to get back to some normality. But the problem is they've made so many changes for it not to be like that. Now they've got to go reverse it, and it's a bit tougher because now they're not getting the same reaction I think they would hope for. Nobody wants to go back in 5 days a week, and unless you want to, you know, you get some people. I think he was saying to me recently, there's some that have gone in since the pandemic every single day because, like you said, Graham, that was their only source of social interaction. That's why they did it. Yeah, my husband don't want to go back 5 days a week.
I wrote about this really early on in the pandemic. You know, I wrote a piece, I think it's still up on my LinkedIn, called, Death to the Rows of Desks. Because I just think that why would anybody now want to leave their workspace at home where they can create it how they like, get the the lighting how they like, sit on a chair that they find comfortable, get their desk the way that they like it, doing the grunt work just to go into an office for an afternoon, sit maybe with dividers, etc., in a tiny space and just do grunt work. Why would you want to do that? Because you can do that at home.
Yeah, without having to have the whole rigmarole of having to get to work and commute to work and do all of this, cost your money.
Because the only reason I would want to go into an office is to see other people. So surely people have got to redesign those spaces, and I think they are. They've got to redesign those spaces and the things that go on in those spaces to be people-centric.
Yeah, I think you've got to communicate with them and ask the team. So in regards to the wellbeing side, I've seen people now having more regular meetings, setting up more group social chats, doing certain things that are going to make people, because there's plenty of people in offices that don't even know who each other are, especially if they're big corporate side. So get the whole team works for you, make it a bit more enjoyable and a bit more friendlier. And I think people will be a bit more approachable and it make life a lot easier, wouldn't it? But definitely moving forward, it's got to be the way to go. I think mental health is a massive thing now, and we need to be addressing this a lot more, jumping a lot more on it, whether that's the workstations, whether it's making people feel comfortable work, whether it's just giving them a piece of fruit each day, because I've seen that as well. You know what I mean? So the different incentives there just to get people to perform better at work. It's never going to be a bad thing if you're trying, is it?
No. You mentioned one thing, Kirsty, earlier. You made a passing comment that sort of goes back to one of the things we've spoken about repeatedly, Graham, as you mentioned about finance. And you said about whether companies can afford it, and that's where it's sort of talking the talk and walking the walk, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And that's the big fear is that, are you unlucky enough to work for an organization that maybe is a little bit more financially restricted, and actually you don't get anything because of that? So maybe it is the organizations who are a bit more cash rich who can go and invest, but actually companies might want to do something but can't. So it's actually their employees are the ones who don't get the benefit. There was an interesting piece, Graham, from, and I'm going to say friend of the show, Rory Berry, that was on earlier this week. And I don't know whether you read this article, but he made a comment. It was something along the lines, if you're managing a team of 10, it could cost you £1 million to replace them all. In effect, what he was saying is if everyone leaves and you go through all the costs and the training and all that sort of thing, it roughly works out at £100,000 per head. That was the example he came up with. And it was a really interesting read. But then it makes you start thinking, actually, companies might think they haven't got the money. But if they then lose people and people vote with their feet because they're not getting that support, actually, in the long run, it's going to kind of cost them more. So actually, do they need to be a little bit more pragmatic about it and go, okay, it may not necessarily, we may have to stretch the budget, we may have to invest a little bit more than we thought we would. But actually, it'll help us in the long run because our staff retention is going to be higher and our productivity is going to be higher. So that's the interesting thing is to what the companies do, which way do they go if they maybe have some sort of financial restriction in place? Do they do nothing, or do they have to go and ask for a little bit more money because it'll be in the benefit of the individual and the company long term?
Yeah, I don't think you can sit and do anything anymore. I think you're right, Steve. I think it's definitely it's not about why we can't invest. It's what can you afford not to, and that's purely the difference now. And moving forward, I think that's definitely the way we've got to go. Staff retention is massive. I speak to lots of recruiters who people are paying more, you look after them more, they're moving around. And it is as black and white as that. It's to be able to, some people are not in it also for the money. And this is why I also find it's more about the benefits that they're offered could outweigh their actual financial income each year. And they're happy with that because actually they're more supported, they're more looked after, and they're more happier at work. So sometimes it's not all about the financial gain for them. It's about actually, I feel more comfortable here, so I work here. The ones that you're losing then, listen, let's be fair. If anyone's getting a higher income offered to them, it's always going to be tempting. We live in a world where money talks. It's as simple as that. But moving forward, I think you're right. Staff retention is massive. If you don't look after your team and you don't invest, you're going to risk losing them anyway. And then, like you said, it's not just about the retraining and things like that. It's actually how much money you're going to lose if these people are not performing for you. If they're not being productive, that loss of earnings is massive. You can't afford to do that. You end up with no company. So you've got to have something is better than nothing. Even if you're offering your team free resources, even if you haven't got the funds, finding the information, taking a little bit of time out to give them helpful tips or sites they can visit and, people they can talk to that are free. And it's not going to cost you as a company anything rather than just a little bit of time. I think even if you can just offer that, it's something, isn't it, where your staff will feel like you've got their best interests at heart then.
Yeah. So bringing it back to the manager piece, do you think we live in a world now where actually we've got to actually turn the whole management piece on its head? Because traditionally, management have kind of graduated up into management and they kind of knew what they'd learned how to be at that level. And then they then told everybody else how you do it because they've learned how to be managers, right? Or they've got the experience, etc. Managers now almost need to be like starting from a point of we know nothing.
It's true.
And actually, we need to, if we're to run this company properly, right from the word go, to see exponential growth, what we need to do is we need to start dialogue. We need to absorb ourselves of anything that we do know and just be conduits for great dialogue within the business. Bring out expertise or our knowledge to it, but make sure that it's not just our viewpoint, it's a shared viewpoint, etc. And if we do that with everything, then actually we stop wasting money and we start spending the money on the things that really are needed in the first place. I mean, we see it in the ergonomics sector. We see it that companies have wasted so much money during this whole pandemic piece, because they just go, oh, here we are, we give everybody that works for us a whole load of money to go and spend on equipment for them to work with at home, right? And everyone just looks on whatever and buys it and then gets it in and go, well, this doesn't work, that doesn't work, you know, I don't know how to use it or whatever. Whereas actually, if they did it the other way around, which is, you know, they talk to their people, talk to some experts and go, can you people talk to our people and say, you know, find out what would really help them, really understand the situation first, and then tell us what it is that we need to be buying in there. Yes, it would have cost them a little bit more money up front, but they wouldn't have wasted any money, so they wouldn't have to be spending twice. And I just see so often people are spending money twice, spending money a third time, you know, whereas we just need to start getting it right the first time by investing properly in expertise and good conversation right from the outset. Sorry, there's my rant for the day.
You're right, Graham, and I think what I come across a lot is there's a lot of ego that floats around. As bad as it sounds, a lot of people, like I said, don't like to change. They think that that's how it should be performed and that's how it is. And I think managers need to be shown management again. I think they need to do it in, like you said, flip it on its head and start again, because the whole world is a different place now. It's got to be relevant. It's got to be fresh. And having that approach where you're looking after your team and including them, you're going to get a hell of a lot better result where they feel like they're having an impact with you on the business. Then you're going to want, if it's like anything, isn't it? If you've had an involvement in something, you're going to want that to grow. You're going to want it to do well. You're going to want all of those things because, you know, it's been one of your ideas. All of those things. Everybody needs their ego rubbed every now and then. I think it just needs to be rubbed in the right way, especially when it comes to your people. And managers probably just need to erase all the thoughts they've got in their head and start again and put some new different beliefs in there and, you know, move forward with that. Because otherwise they're going to lose. I've seen it now so many times. The best valuable team members go because they're not valued enough and they're not heard.
And we've seen some of that during the pandemic. I have to say, we've seen some real examples of that. I don't know whether you followed the owner of Brewdog, for example, during the pandemic on LinkedIn. But you know, they were cruising along, all lovely. They were really getting their kind of exposure in there, and then all of a sudden there was a big problem. You know, there was an expose by a member of staff and what. But you know, in a way, they did the right thing. They came out and they went, do you know what? We've cocked up here. We didn't do the right thing. We didn't listen to our people. In fact, we were saying publicly stuff about how we manage, and we weren't actually taking note of what we actually were saying. It was rhetoric, and it wasn't real. We need to be more real. We've done this wrong, you know, and now we're gonna go back. We're gonna say sorry, and we're gonna listen. I think
that's what a good leader does. That's what a good leader does, is they acknowledge where they've, let's be fair, effed up a bit, and they go back and they rectify things. And you can learn massively from your mistakes. It's never a bad thing to have mistakes or have failures there, is it? It's all about what you take from them. And if they've messed up here, it's like, okay, we've got a good business here, we've got a good team. We just need to just show that a little bit more and do something better about it. That's a good leader. It's not a bad thing to have that. You know, you want things like that, don't you? You do want it. Nothing's ever going to go smooth forever, is it? So, but
I think that's a very different leader than we've had in the past, and I think a lot of businesses are really struggling to kind of let go of that. No, we do not want to show weakness. We do not want to, you know. I have a slight aversion to the whole authentic piece when people talk about authenticity on social media, because what is authentic? You're on social media after all. Okay. But for me, what authentic really isn't, you know, necessarily telling people all of the time, left, right, and centre, oh, you know, my business is failing and then this doesn't work or whatever, but is being honest when you need to be honest. I think, you know, I don't believe in necessarily, you know, it should all be smoke and mirrors like it used to be and sort of like fake it till you make it. But at the same time, I think a business needs to sort of protect its brand and show its brand or whatever. But I think there are then times where they just need to be honest and go, Yeah, we've learned something here. And I think it's the learning piece that's really important in that. What I want to see, where I know, because I spend all day long looking at people's LinkedIn profiles, where I know that someone is being authentic, where I know where someone's being authentic is when they've actually told me not that they've made the mistake or not that they failed or whatever, but what they've learned from it and what they've now done, right? So it's, you know, it's that journey part that's the really important part. And actually, they're not celebrating the mistake. Then they're sorry, you know, they're really kind of gutted that they've made that mistake. But they've said, but it's taught us this, and now they're telling us why they're a better business because of it. And I think
that's positive, isn't it? That is positive that you get from it. And there's always a positive, whether it's a negative experience or not. So what you take from that, there'll always be a lesson learned there. So if you just got to look at the lesson learned in a positive way, and you'll be fine moving forward. But you're absolutely right, Graham. I don't think a lot of people behave like that, and I think they should. Being authentic doesn't, like you said, it's everyone messes up. If we're human, like if we didn't mess up, we wouldn't be human, would we? But making it relatable and showing a bit of vulnerability every now and then is never going to be a bad thing, especially if you've moved forward from it. People like to see people, I don't know about you guys, I like to see people succeed. I like to see people have growth, and I like to see their journeys where they've had the good and the bad, because it makes it, that's what inspires people more, because they can do it, I can do it. They've gone through these things and I've gone through these. That's where it relates to everybody. So I'm fully with you on that. Absolutely.
Yeah. So those people out there that are faking it, I know, right?
He knows. He's watching you.
Yeah, because
he's got an authenticity little bar across his screen.
I have actually got one for people, because seriously, when you see it where someone posts one day of the week, they go, "Oh, you know, I've failed miserably. My business is on the down and down." Da, 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 da. And then 2 days later, they're like, "I'm absolutely crushing it. I've done 1.5 million this week." You just think, what? No.
People don't respect you then, and they will straight away detect bullshit. Let's be fair, excuse my French, but you know what I mean? It's they do. I see it all the time. I have a BS radar like you, Graham, and I think it doesn't feel very right there, does it? Not very authentic there. But the thing is, I think if people could see moving forward, that's exactly what I want to get involved in. It's all great to watch people that have achieved things and they're in their 60s, 70s. It's great to hear their stories. I hear a lot of these podcasts and stuff, and I think fantastic. You know, I like to have that inspiration. But what inspires me more is the people doing it now, who are hustling now, and they've had that growth in the last year or 2 or 3, and they've been through all these different experiences. That this is where we are at now, and everybody's going to be feeling. So the fact is, if you can watch people like that and see their growth and see where they face the same challenges that you are, you engage a lot more. You listen, a bit like your dog.
Yeah, it's because it's dinner time and he hasn't been fed, and because we've sort of overrun. The dog's barking because he wants his lunch.
No, he's saying that's it, Kirsty. I'm fully with you. Don't worry. That's what he's saying.
we are gonna need to wrap it up. I don't know what set him off. I honestly don't. Oi, shush. There you go. Control.
Management, good management there, Graham.
Well, isn't it Graham, the guy that does the dog stuff on the TV? There you go.
Yeah.
Kirsty, it's been absolutely brilliant having you on. Thank you so much for that. If you're listening back to this on Spotify, the reason that it's explicit rating is down to Kirsty. Okay, I'm so sorry about that.
You know, I'm very authentic, guys. I do apologize. That's totally fine.
Until next week, this has been Wow Ergonomics. If you want to know more details about the light that was mentioned, Stephen will put the details in the comments for that. If you want to find out more about Kirsty, she is available on LinkedIn. I know that because that's where I found her in the first place. So do touch base with her there. So until next week. Stay tuned, stay safe and healthy out there. And remember, don't be fake. Bye for now.